It's been a really long time since I was involved in speculation videos in the gaming industry. I started out making speculation videos on Fallout 4 way back in the day, but I have since moved on from that. But I thought it would be fun if today we went through some of the recent leaks surrounding Starfield, because I do have some thoughts. And of course, insert the obligatory, take this with a grain of salt, blah, blah, blah. We don't know if it's confirmed, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Just take that, whatever. Now, my understanding is that these screenshots leaked on Reddit originally just a few days ago and have since been vetted by a lot of different people. A couple different YouTubers have dug into it, verified with some independent sources. I haven't heard from any source of mine whether or not these are legitimate, but that doesn't mean they aren't. It just means that my particular sources aren't telling me anything about it. That being said, they do seem relatively believable as far as I can tell, and I'll explain why it seems believable right now. So the first thing that stands out to me is just the material work. Everything has a sort of plasticky sheen to it, which is very reminiscent of Fallout 4. At least for me, everything in that game kind of looked too glossy. There wasn't enough diffusion in the texture work and the materials that they used, and that seems to be reflected here. Now, it's not to say it won't be fixed by the final release of the game, but it is to say, as for this particular screenshot, which has rumored to come from roughly 2 years ago, a build in 2018, it does seem very much like a creation engine scene, at least as far as I can tell. The other thing to notice is just all of the original assets, the fact that the camera is centered right around the character's waist, which is a very small detail for somebody who would be faking this to notice, but it is very reminiscent of pretty much every Bethesda title for the last decade and a half, 2 decades probably, that have done third-person views. The camera always centers right at the hip level, follows behind, and it's just a trope of their engine. Whereas, for instance, CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3, The Witcher 2, they always had the camera up higher. With the creation engine, they always sit right on the butt and then follow the character from there. And that seems to be exactly where this particular camera is situated as well. People have also noticed that the font under the health and stamina bars matches the same font that's on the website for Starfield. They've noticed that when they post pictures from this leak on the Bethesda Discord, those posts are immediately deleted by admins. And they've also pointed out some specific details when it comes to different elements of the HUD and the models that are being used that are all very detailed and seem like overkill if somebody was just trying to put together a quick leak to generate some fun on the internet. Now, when it comes to speculation, there's a few things that you can notice. For instance, it seems to me like there is a planet on the top of the screen, and then there's also another planet peeking out underneath whatever this building or vehicle is that you're standing in front of. It reaffirms what many people have speculated before, which is that Starfield is going to sort of be a hybrid between the Outer Wilds and Outer Worlds. Ironic that they're both named similarly, but basically the idea is that they want you to be able to travel seamlessly between multiple planets, to be able to interact with characters on that world wherever you want to go, but with the same level of quality as you would expect from world building in a Bethesda game. Now, as to whether or not that's actually achievable in a reasonable way, I'm not sure. Bethesda seems confident that they can pull it off. Todd Howard, in multiple interviews since the launch of Fallout 4, has said that they're working on a ton of new, incredible tech devices and systems that are going to be implemented in their coming games, namely Starfield and the Elderscrolls 6, that are going to allow them to go bigger and badder with their world creation, most likely through procedural generation of world maps, and then going back through with artists, detailing everything and polishing it up. Now, that's very normal for open world development. Most game worlds are dynamically generated, and then the artists go in after the fact and add any tweaks that they need to add to make the game world feel more believable and real. That's how Horizon Zero Dawn was generated. That's how Death Stranding was generated. That's how all of these games usually work. But of course, if we're talking about a planet-sized level, that's a little more ambitious. I'm welcoming, Bethesda trying this, but that's a little bit harder than just generating a few open world maps. Especially because to me, it seems as though if you're going to give the player a spaceship and tell them that they can fly from one planet to another, you need to allow the player to land anywhere on the planet that they want and to explore the planet from there. I'm not asking that it's a gigantic civilization with a detailed city surrounding the entire planet. Not at all. It could be one big city on the planet and everything else is just a dynamically generated forest with valleys, mountains, hills. that would be fine. I'd be okay with that as long as it works and looks good, because that's at least somewhat understandable in the scope of the world that you're creating, or in this case, I guess, galaxy or universe that you're creating. What I hope isn't the case is that you take off from one planet, fly to another, and then are forced to land in one particular area of the map and explore that one, in the same way that, for instance, Outer Worlds tends to work, where you take off, you can go to a different planet, but you're always exploring a set level that's been created that represents that planet. You're not actually exploring that planet. Now, we do have a close-up of the HUD that was also included in the leak. We have an O2 CO2 system that you can see here. There's a triangle counter with a 1 on it. There's what seems to me to be a day-night counter and symbol right here with the half semicircle there. And then there's a gravity meter, as far as I can tell. That's what I would assume it is, to determine how much force is being applied to the player. And then there seems to be sort of a hybrid mini map, which is actually probably the most interesting thing about this to me, paired with the arrow that's pointing up at the top of this circle that encompasses the HUD. The reason that this is intriguing to me is because Bethesda, as far as I'm concerned, has always been the masters of open world exploration gameplay, specifically in all of the details that they put forward. They understand that having a mini map on screen can often pull players out of the immersion in the world and lead them to just staring at the mini map in the corner of the screen to figure out where they need to go, instead of looking in the world to find their way by themselves. It's why I love compasses in games, because I think they work so much better than mini maps. I think mini maps on screen are an outdated garbage thing that should just go away in open world games. I think they do way more harm than good. When you have a compass on screen, yes, you're peeking up at the general direction you need to follow, but then it's up to you to look at the world, analyze everything in front of you in the direction that the compass has pointed you, and figure out where you need to go, to look at all of the objects, the scenery, everything you're doing. The only thing that's better than a compass, as far as I'm concerned, is a dynamically generating instruction set within the world that can lead you from point A to point B. What comes to mind would be, for instance, in Death Stranding, with the plots that you can set over the terrain, or even in something like the Mafia 1 remake that just recently launched, where they have these street signs that blend in with the world as you're driving from location to location to tell you where you need to go. It's done very subtly, but it's fantastic. What this HUD seems to indicate to me is, for one, that we're going to have a compass once again, which is what this arrow is at the top of the circle that surrounds the HUD elements that we see. And then with this circle that's buried in the top left that has all of these dots on it, it seems to me as though that's some sort of orthographic view from the top of the planet right above the player that's showing you where certain locations or objects might be as you continue to explore the planet. So you can go and aim this way, maybe hop in your spaceship or some sort of vehicle and travel forward. I'm also really intrigued by the gravity meter. I'm assuming it's a gravity meter. I don't know what else G would stand for when you're just standing on a planet. If you were flying, maybe it's G-force, but I'm not sure how that would impact gameplay. Gravity, though, seems like a cool mechanic they could add into the game, especially considering that there's also a stamina meter and a jetpack that we see on the character, meaning that if the gravity, for instance, is way higher, the jetpack can't get you very high, or it burns way more CO2 to get you going the same height as it would have otherwise. And then also your stamina depletes way faster on a high gravity planet as opposed to a low gravity planet. I think that adds to some really interesting dynamic gameplay where you're in a combat situation, for instance, and your stamina is depleting way faster as you're running from level to level or from cover to cover, simply because the gravity is way higher in a particular planet that you're fighting on. I think that could lead to some interesting situations, and it's something I haven't really considered before, but now that I've thought of it, I want to see how this could work. Now, probably the most convincing part of this leak is this picture of the ship that I can't find any trace of anywhere. I can't find this in any artwork for any other game manuals or collector's edition stuff that I have on my bookshelf. I don't know where this came from. It seems as though it's probably original, at least to some project that hasn't seen the light of day. If this was something that a hoaxer was trying to put together, I mean, I'm not even upset. If this is something they drew and created or modeled just for this leak, I mean, they shouldn't be leaking stuff. Like they should be working at one of these studios, you know? It's pretty incredible work. It has a very unique style. It has the same color palette and just general look and feel as what we saw in the Starfield announcement trailer. It just seems real. I usually have a pretty good BS detector when it comes to these types of things and these leaks. I've been able to call out fake like Assassin's Creed Valhalla leaks before. And I have a pretty good track record when it comes to predicting, you know, big events and things because I have pretty phenomenal sources within the industry. And I just think that this looks real. So if I had to put my money on it, I would say this is legitimate. Now, the overall implication of this, considering that it is a 2-year-old build of the game that we're looking at, for one, is that the game does look kind of crappy from the screenshot we've seen. But that is true of pretty much any game if you take a screenshot 2 years prior to launch of an alpha build when they're testing out systems and things. They're not trying to wow the other developers in the room with them with the graphics. They're trying to see if the systems themselves work. So the minutia doesn't really matter. And of course, a game is more than just the graphics, but I want to just reiterate, even though this particular screenshot looks like a weird mod for Fallout 4, I don't think it's indicative of what the game will actually look like at the end of the day. Now, the question to me is, why is this leaking now? Of course, you know, if these screenshots were actually taken from a build 2 years ago, why is it coming out now? Why wasn't this leaked 2 years ago when they initially took the pictures? Or if it's that they have access to this build from 2 years ago and they're just taking the screenshots now and publishing them now, why do they have access to that and why are they doing it now? You know, all of these questions start to pop up and it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if this is in fact from a build 2 years ago. Now, what it seems like to me, more than likely, this is a controlled leak. It's something that many people believe that Bethesda has done before. They have a track record of kind of putting out little seeds to hype the community up. And whether or not it's something coming from on high from like Todd Howard himself, or if it's just a single PR person that had this idea to kind of generate hype and get people excited, I don't know. But what it does seem to me is to be a controlled leak, because I don't know how this just is sitting out in the ether until randomly after Microsoft buys the studio and then publishes a few of these pictures. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why they would do that. So more than likely, to me, this is a controlled leak from the studio to start generating hype, hear people discuss what they look forward to in the game, and more than anything, it helps them figure out what expectations are. Because once people like me, losers like me, start to speculate on crap, you know, with me saying, oh, the gravity system, I would like to see how that pairs with the stamina system to see how that all works in combat and exploration, because high gravity environments are much harder to traverse than low gravity environments. So how is that going to pair? They might be like, okay, yeah, people are excited for that feature. Okay, we'll make sure to mention that in the announcement. We'll push that because people are excited for it. Whereas if people are like, well, you know, I really hope that's not a gravity marker, because that gravity system would be stupid as hell if they had that. If that was the reaction, which maybe that's the generalized reaction, I don't know. But if that was the reaction, then they can potentially shift how they pitch the game, shift how they figure all of this stuff out, and how they pitch it to the public when it eventually is being proposed. I think it's kind of clever, and I would honestly probably do the same thing. Just being honest. But truth be told, this is at the very least interesting, and it's cool to see some actual pieces of what is more than likely Starfield, which from my sources that I've talked to, it seems as though they're aiming for an announcement this coming summer and then a launch next fall/winter. We'll see if that actually happens. Todd Howard has said many times that he will not announce a game moving forward until they're only a few months out from launch. So pretty much done with it, so their pitch can be the most polished that it can be and they can manage expectations as best they can. But we're just going to have to see. I mean, I think the important thing to remember is that Fallout 4 launched in 2015. They did some DLC leading into 2016, but that launched in 2015. That was 5 years ago. And by next fall, it will have been 6 years. 6 years is a long time for Bethesda. Yes, they had Fallout 76, but Fallout 76 was a system that was built up during the production of Fallout 4. It's something Todd Howard spoke about repeatedly in multiple interviews, that was a multiplayer system from the production of Fallout 4, and that when they bought out Bethesda Game Studios Austin, brought them onto the team. They had Austin work on Fallout 76 while the core team in Maryland that did Fallout 4 and Skyrim and all the other games worked on Starfield. So as far as I'm concerned, and as far as anybody else can tell, Starfield has basically been in production since 2015, full production since 2016, with occasional breakaways for them to help out Austin on 76, but they didn't really do much of anything with it. That was pretty much all Bethesda Game Studios Austin. The core team was working on this. And that means a 5-6 year turnaround time on this game. It's pretty massive. I mean, 2015 was a hot minute ago. I know it feels like it was yesterday, but it was. I mean, Skyrim to Fallout 4 was only 4 years. And Fallout 3 to Skyrim was only three and a half years. Like, these games were turning around much faster back in the day. And yes, these games are getting bigger and more elaborate, but I think it is a testament to just how ambitious this Starfield project likely is, that Bethesda's taking almost 2 times the amount of time that they tend to spend on average on a game working on this. It is their first new IP in decades. It's their first, game of this type with sci-fi mixed with huge, not just open world elements, but open galaxy elements or solar system elements. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. And I just hope that Bethesda was able to get the engine reworked in a way that actually functions properly. I mean, it seems as though Bethesda also feels the same way, because Todd Howard has said like 15 times in recent interviews that they're working and have been working on a total overhaul of their engine. I've said before, I think they should just rename it, be like our new engine, the Enigma engine, whatever they call it, just something so that it seems as though it's new. And under the hood, it could be the same engine, just reworked with some new bells and whistles. But the Creation engine itself has so much baggage, they should just move on, rename it. It's okay. Nobody actually feels that that sense of sweetness and love and compassion towards it. They're ready to move on. It seems outdated, and it feels as though it belongs 2 generations ago now at this point. But all told, I'm really excited to see what this game pans out to be. I want to hear your thoughts on these leaks down in the comment section below. Who knows? Maybe by the time that you're seeing this, we'll have confirmation that this is real, or maybe you will be playing the game, or perhaps even this will be confirmed to be completely fake and I will have egg on my face and this will be totally irrelevant and stupid. But either way, let me know down in the comment section below. I love you guys very much. Hit the like button. It does help. Subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I've got a couple more videos coming out, and we're working on the next couple critiques. It's going to be awesome. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.